And as you've seen in that story there's been mixed reaction to the Limpopo Health MEC's remarks, and of course the National Health, Education, Health and Allied Workers Union saying that the Limpopo health system needs to be overhauled, while others say that the MEC was well within her rights to make these remarks. Others are saying that in fact she wasn't, and she may have missed the mark here as well. So let's have this conversation now and talk about the factors around immigration and how best to deal with it. Dr. William Mpofu is a political analyst, and Ashraf, who is a specialist immigration attorney. Thank you so much to you both for your time this afternoon. I'll begin with you, Ashraf. What was your reaction when you saw the MEC's video?
Well, within the context that it was released, it is against the background of a lot of, let's say, tensions that we've all recently seen, one or of another kind. But this is definitely a situation where there are a competition for resources. And these resources, as the MEC said, are limited as far as she's concerned. However, the bigger picture is that South Africa has faced huge amounts of migration, not just in the present day, but historically as well. And these things have taken a number of years to basically unfold. So you had the pre-94 migration patterns where the mining and farming always used, let's say, foreign labor. But prior to that, we all know the story of the Dutch East India Company and the UK and the sugarcane farms of Natal, as well as the Eight-Landers policy that was created by President Kruger to protect the gold and diamond resources of this country. So this is not something new. This is another installment in that kind of tension between the people that come to the country or are pushed here for various factors and the pull factors that the country offers in respect of better opportunity and scarce skills.
And I'm going to get to that in just a moment, the complexities for policy that are brought about by immigration issues. But let me give you, Dr. Mpofu, a chance to give us your reaction to the video.
Thank you very much. It's an important video that we saw, an important piece of communication that we saw. And I mean important in terms of its political significance and its political magnitude. It's a misfortune that the representations from the minister happened, I think, at the wrong context, before the wrong audience, at the wrong time and in the wrong place. If those representations were met by President Ramaphosa to President Emmerson Mnangagwa, that my fellow SADC leader, your population of unwell people are pouring into my hospitals, and thus depleting the resources that are first deserved by my nationals. That kind of conversation could lead to change. It could be a rich and fruitful conversation in terms of the future it can deliver, the positive change it can deliver. But delivering such a conversation to a patient on a bed in a hospital before other patients and medical staff all there, it compressed an important conversation into a populist statement. And it took away the gravity of the message and actually replaced it with a political performance that became xenophobic, populist, and cheap, in the sense that that victim there lying on the bed, the victim of the Zimbabwean political and economic situation, and the victim of an illness that we don't know, there's no capacity to answer that question or solve the problem that was in place. That is my view for now.
So, Dr. Mpofu, before I move back to Ashraf, then very briefly, I'm listening to you. You say that this conversation was supposed to be happening with, the Zimbabwean counterparts, particularly in the form of a president, so there can be accountability here. But I'm keen to hear from you, given where we are now and what we've seen this video and government talking about efforts to try and now contain the crisis that is immigration in South Africa. Let's talk about the handling of this issue when it comes to immigration for decades now. Do you think the South African government has been handling this immigration issue correctly?
I doubt the correctness of handling of the issue. And let me answer this with a contextualization. There's some truth in the statement of the minister that Zimbabwean economic problems have now become not an international relations issue, but a domestic issue in South Africa. And it's true that Zimbabwean patients do deprive South African patients of space and opportunity to access medical care. And the problem is rooted in the collapsed Zimbabwean economy and Zimbabwean state. And the Zimbabwean head of state is the correct person to answer that question. And we have seen that the government of South Africa, whenever there is a crisis in Zimbabwe, whenever there are disputed elections in Zimbabwe or there are protests in Zimbabwe, the government of South Africa has gone to the protection of the incumbent regime there in Zimbabwe, has gone for quiet diplomacy, has gone for non-interference in other people's countries. But that interference in other people's countries comes to South Africa economically and politically. There has never been an eyeball-to-eyeball conversation between the liberation movement in South Africa and the regime in Zimbabwe to say the corruption that you are doing, the ignorance of democracy that you are practicing, the human rights that you are trampling on, are causing a burden in South Africa. Can you stop this? In the name of SADC, in the name of liberation, and in the name of Africa. That conversation has not taken place. Hence, you see now ministers addressing patients that are lying on beds, addressing victims, instead of addressing these questions to the perpetrators of these crimes against humanity.
Okay. Ashraf, pardon me, Dr. Mpofu, I'd like to bring back Ashraf before we run out of time. Now, Ashraf, one of the things that is clear is that in that video, you can tell there are serious frustrations here that are expressed by the MEC, and she talks about this burden on the system. Now, migration brings about complexities when it comes to policies, and also, you look at some of the challenges around human rights violations in a country, economic opportunity, labor shortages, among others. This at the same time trying to balance with the needs of the citizens in the country. Let's talk about these difficulties around the policies that are caused by migration and how countries should be dealing with them.
So I think our government is very alive to the policies and has put certain things into place to address them. For example, if you look at the preamble to the Immigrations Act, it speaks of taking into account the push factors from other countries. Now we know there's a lot of push factors, predominantly from Southern Africa or in mid-Africa, be it wars, poverty, lack of opportunity, etc., etc. Those would be the push factors here. But South Africa is also in need of the great benefits of foreigners. I mean, the Act says so clearly. They will take into account the valuable contribution of foreigners, both in their human spirit as well as their development capital. But remember, we have to frame our conversation within the Constitution. There is only one Constitution in the Republic, and every government official, minister, and person is bound to uphold human dignity. Now, human dignity is a component of the Bill of Rights, and it has no nationality. It is basically inherent in all people, citizens and non-citizens, simply because they are human. The South African Constitutional Court has upheld that, and it says that when a person is in this country for whatever reason, legal or illegal, his human dignity must be respected, and it is protected by Section 10 of the Bill of Rights. Because human dignity is like human life itself. It is one of the foundational values of the Bill of Rights, and it constitutes the basis and inspiration for the recognition that is given to other more specific rights under the Bill of Rights. So we are all guided by the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. And so you can take your conversation from there and say, what are the other components affecting, or what are the other rights affecting migrants in this country? So you have the Refugees Act that deals with asylum seekers and that pathway into the country. And then you have the Immigrations Act. And of course, you also have the Citizenship Act, where the minister may confer citizen on a foreigner who has demonstrated some great contribution, perhaps to society or to humankind. So these are the kinds of laws that affect how we are to deal with these things. And there are plenty judgments that basically make this very, very clear. Everyone has equal protection under the law, and everyone has the right not to be discriminated against. That is clear.
And as we wrap up then our conversation, we're out of time. I'm going to give you the last bite, Dr. Mpofu, very briefly. How much of a further strain are we going to see on the South African economy, especially because the problem is not only, with, Zimbabwe, but there are other countries as well, where we see some of the leaders and the state of the healthcare system in their countries, and they go to consult overseas, but their citizens are left with no choice but to seek greener pastures.
It's not about to get better as long as our leaders, not just the South African leadership, look at the problem of the African condition in the eye, the condition of political elitism and corruption. Zimbabwe has mineral resources and enough wealth to build a robust health sector. That will not stop the immigration of Zimbabweans into South Africa, but it will not put it at the level where it has gotten. Zimbabwe has resources to build its own strong healthcare system, but that is not happening mainly because of political patronage and corruption at the highest level of the country. And leaders should talk about that and do that in order to ease this problem that is playing out in South Africa.
And conversations are going to be very important, Dr. Mpofu. Let's talk about this again in future with you both. Thank you so much for your time, because Ashraf, we still need to even get to the review of some of these policies and what they look like, and if they are going to actually be beneficial as we look to, to the future. So let me thank you both for your time for now, and hopefully we have this discussion again in future. That is Dr. William Mpofu, political analyst, as well as Ashraf Essop, specialist immigration attorney.